You're nothing but dead weight, Kady. A cripple who can't even stand on her own 2 feet. I want a divorce." Those were the last words my husband, Min-jun Park, said to me before he threw the divorce papers at my wheelchair and walked out with his mistress clinging to his arm. What he didn't know: the woman he just discarded was the hidden heir to the Osei empire, worth $47 billion, and the silent investor who owned 60% of his precious company. But I let him think I was just a poor African girl he married out of pity. Today, he'd learn the truth, and it would destroy him. Before we dive into this crazy story, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Let's build this community together. 3 years ago, I could run. I could dance. I could stand on my own 2 feet and command a boardroom with nothing but my presence. My name is Kady Osei, and I was born in Accra, Ghana, into a family that built empires while others built dreams. My grandfather started with gold mines. My father expanded into technology, real estate, and pharmaceuticals. By the time I turned 25, I wasn't just an heiress. I was being groomed to run it all. But I had a secret passion: art and technology fusion. So I moved to Seoul, South Korea, under a pseudonym, Kady Mensa, to study and explore without the weight of my family name. I rented a modest apartment in Hongdae, wore simple clothes, and lived like any other graduate student. It was liberation. It was freedom. That's where I met Min-jun. He was a mid-level manager at a struggling tech startup, handsome in that classic Korean way, sharp jawline, perfectly styled hair, ambitious eyes. We met at a cafe where I was sketching digital art concepts. He asked about my work. I smiled. We talked for hours. "You're brilliant," he said, looking at my designs. "These could revolutionize user interface design." "Just ideas," I replied modestly. "No," he insisted. "These are million-dollar ideas." If only he knew. I'd already made my first billion by 23. We dated for 6 months. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to love me for who I was, not what I had, because he thought I had nothing. He knew I was from Ghana, that I was studying on what he believed was a modest scholarship, that I lived simply. He never asked too many questions, and I never volunteered information. When he proposed, I said yes, not because of love, I realize now, but because I wanted to believe someone could love me without knowing my worth. My family was furious. My father flew to Seoul himself. "Kady, you're making a mistake," Papa said in our native Twi, his voice heavy with concern. "You don't know this man, you don't know his heart." "I know enough," I replied stubbornly. "He loves me for me." "Does he?" My father's eyes were sad. "Or does he love what he thinks you are?" I didn't listen. I married Min-jun in a small ceremony. My family didn't attend, but they didn't abandon me either. They watched from afar, waiting. For the first year, marriage was good. Min-jun's company was struggling, so I secretly invested $15 million through a shell corporation, becoming the majority shareholder without his knowledge. Within months, the company turned around. Min-jun got promoted to director. He thought it was his brilliance. I let him believe it. Then came the accident. I was crossing the street in Gangnam when a delivery truck ran a red light. I remember the screech of tires, the impact, the world spinning. When I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, I couldn't feel my legs. The doctors said the spinal injury was severe. I might never walk again. Min-jun visited me every day that first week. He held my hand. He whispered that everything would be okay. But I saw something flicker in his eyes when the doctors confirmed my paralysis. Something cold. "We'll get through this together," he said. But his visits became shorter, less frequent. His touch became mechanical. 2 months into my recovery, confined to a wheelchair, I overheard him on the phone in our living room. I'd wheeled myself quietly from the bedroom. "I can't do this anymore, Mother," he was saying in Korean. "She's a burden. A cripple. How can I build my career with a wife who can't even stand beside me at company events?" My heart stopped. "What about her family?" his mother asked through the speaker. "Can they help financially?" Min-jun laughed bitterly. "She has nothing. She's from some poor African family. No connections, no money. I thought she'd at least give me healthy children, but now She can't even do that. I wheeled backward silently, my hands shaking on the controls. That night, I didn't confront him. Instead, I called my father. "Papa," I whispered, "you were right." "I'll send the jet," he replied immediately. "No," I said firmly. "Not yet. I need to see this through. I need to know exactly who I married." "Kady." "Please, Papa, trust me. But I need you to do something. I need full control of my assets transferred to Korean-accessible accounts. I need my legal team on standby, and I need complete documentation of every investment I've made in Min-jun's company." There was a long pause. Then my father, the man who'd built an empire from dirt and determination, said, "What are you planning?" "Justice," I replied. Over the next 3 months, I played the perfect, grateful, broken wife. I smiled when Min-jun came home late. I didn't question the perfume on his clothes. I thanked him for staying with me despite my condition. And I watched him grow more comfortable in his cruelty. I also watched him with her. Lee Jae-woo, 26 years old, junior marketing associate at his company. Pretty, able-bodied, ambitious. I saw them together at a cafe through my hired investigator's photos. I saw the way he touched her face, the way he'd once touched mine. I read the messages my tech team retrieved from his phone. "Soon," he texted her. "I'll divorce her soon. Then we can be together properly." "What about money?" Jae-woo asked. "Divorce is expensive." "She has nothing," Min-jun replied. "No family money, no job, no assets. The apartment is in my name. She'll get whatever minimal amount the court decides, and that's it. She'll probably go back to Africa." "Good," Jae-woo responded. "I can't wait to be Mrs. Park." I smiled when I read those messages. A cold, calculated smile. That's when I began phase 2. I had my legal team in Ghana coordinate with top Korean attorneys. I had forensic accountants document every one that flowed from my anonymous investments into Min-jun's company. I had my family's connections reach out to board members, industry leaders, and media contacts. I built a web so intricate that when I pulled the thread, everything would unravel. And then came today. I was in the living room, reading. When Min-jun walked in with Jae-woo clinging to his arm like a parasite, he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Kady," he said, his voice flat, "we need to talk." I looked up calmly. "Do we?" Jae-woo giggled, actually giggled. "This is awkward." Min-jun pulled out divorce papers from his briefcase and dropped them on the table in front of me. "I want a divorce. I've already consulted with lawyers. Given your condition and lack of financial contribution to this marriage, the settlement will be minimal. You should sign today." I looked at the papers, then at him. "Dead weight, that's what you called me, isn't it?" His jaw tightened. "I never said." "You did 3 months ago on the phone with your mother. She's a burden, a cripple." I smiled. "Should I continue?" Jae-woo's smile faltered. Min-jun's face went red. "You were eavesdropping." "In my own home." I wheeled closer. "Tell me, Min-jun, do you know what's interesting about your company's miraculous turnaround 3 years ago?" His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "The $15 million investment that saved you from bankruptcy. The anonymous investor who now owns 60% of Park Tech Solutions. Did you ever wonder who that was?" The color drained from his face. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, throwing it at his feet the same way he'd thrown the divorce papers at me. "That's me. Every dollar, every share, every decision that made you successful, that was my money, my investment, my brilliance that you thought was yours." Min-jun's hands shook as he picked up the folder. Jae-woo looked confused. That's impossible," he stammered. "You're just..." "Just what? A poor African girl?" I laughed, and it echoed in the room like breaking glass. "My full name is Kady Osei, Osei, as in the Osei Empire. My family's net worth is $47 billion. I have a master's degree from Oxford in business and technology. I've sat on boards since I was 22. And you, Min-jun Park, you're about to learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." His face went from red to white. The folder slipped from his hands. "No," he whispered. "No, you're lying." My phone buzzed. I glanced at it and smiled. That would be the Korean Financial Times. They're running the story in. I checked my watch. 3 minutes. Hidden heiress reveals truth. CEO Park Min-jun owes success to wife he called dead weight. It's trending already. Jae-woo grabbed his arm. Min-jun, what is she talking about? What company shares? But he couldn't answer. He was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. I'm calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow, I continued calmly. As the majority shareholder, I'll be proposing your removal as CEO due to gross mismanagement of. The apartment door burst open. Standing there was a man I'd never seen before, tall, Western, in an expensive suit. Behind him were 2 Korean police officers. Kady Osei, the Western man said in English. Yes. I'm Detective Morrison, Interpol Financial Crimes Division. You're under arrest for. But I never heard the rest because Min-jun's smile, sudden and vicious, told me everything. What had he done? The smile on Min-jun's face was pure poison. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known I would make a move, and he'd prepared a counterattack. My mind raced as Detective Morrison stepped closer, handcuffs glinting and the afternoon light streaming through our apartment windows. Under arrest for what? I demanded, my voice steady despite my hammering heart. Money laundering, fraud, and illegal financial transactions across international borders, Morrison said, pulling out a document. We've been investigating suspicious transfers from Ghana to South Korea under shell corporations linked to your family's businesses. You're suspected of using your disability and marriage as a cover for. That's absurd, I snapped. Every transaction I've made has been legal and documented. My lawyers are currently being questioned in Accra, Morrison interrupted. Mrs. Park, or should I say Ms. Osei, you need to come with us. I looked at Min-jun. His smile had grown wider. Jae-woo was staring at me with undisguised glee. You think you're so smart, Min-jun said softly, walking closer to my wheelchair. He crouched down to my eye level, and I saw the man I'd married had never existed. This person before me was a stranger. Did you really believe I didn't notice the sudden influx of cash into my company, that I didn't investigate where it came from? My blood ran cold. 6 months ago, I hired the best private investigators money could buy, he continued, his voice a whisper meant only for me. I found out everything. Your real name, your family, your wealth. And I realized something beautiful. You'd been hiding it all, which meant you'd been committing fraud. A foreign national, hiding assets, making undisclosed investments, using shell corporations to avoid detection. Those are legal investment vehicles. Are they? He tilted his head. When you never declared your true identity to Korean immigration, when you married me under a false name, when you manipulated company stocks without proper disclosure. I have friends in very high places now, Kady. Friends who don't appreciate foreign investors secretly controlling Korean tech companies. The trap snapped shut around me, and I finally understood. He'd been planning this. While I'd been building my case against him, he'd been building one against me. You have the right to remain silent, Morrison began, but I cut him off. I want to call my lawyer, now. Of course, Morrison said, at the station. As they wheeled me toward the door, my own wheelchair becoming a prison, Min-jun called out, Oh, and Kady, I've already filed an emergency injunction freezing all your assets in Korea pending the investigation. That includes your shares in my company. You won't be removing anyone from anything. Jae-woo giggled again, that infuriating sound. Guess you're the dead weight now. The police station was cold, sterile, and humiliating. They processed me like a common criminal. Fingerprints, photographs, documentation. My disability made everything harder. I needed assistance to transfer from my wheelchair for the photos. The officers were professional but distant, treating me like I was already guilty. In the interrogation room, I finally got my phone call. Papa, I said when my father answered, I need help. I know, I've already seen the news. His voice was tight with fury. Kady, what happened? Min-jun knew. He's been planning this. He's frozen my assets, accused me of fraud, and... Slow down, Papa commanded. Tell me everything. I did, every detail. The investigation, the accusations, Min-jun's betrayal layered upon betrayal. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. "Papa, I'm sending Marcus Chen," he said finally. Marcus Chen was our family's most ruthless attorney, a Korean-American lawyer who'd won cases against governments. "He'll be there in 4 hours. Until then, say nothing. Not one word. Do you understand?" "Yes." "And Kady," his voice softened, "I told you that you were making a mistake, but you're my daughter. We protect our own. This boy has no idea what he started." They kept me in holding for 6 hours. 6 hours in a cold cell, still in my wheelchair, unable to even use the bathroom without assistance and humiliation. I'd gone from penthouse suites to this, from boardrooms to prison cells, all because I'd wanted to be loved for myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. When Marcus Chen finally arrived, he was a force of nature in a 3-piece suit. 50 years old, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that made prosecutors nervous. "Ms. Osei," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Your father sends his regards. Now let's dismantle this farce." The interrogation that followed was brutal. Morrison and a Korean prosecutor, a severe woman named Park Hae-won, no relation to Min-jun, thankfully, threw everything at me. "You entered Korea under false pretenses," Prosecutor Park stated. "I entered under my legal name, Kady Mensa Osei," Marcus countered smoothly. "Mensa is her middle name. There was no deception. All her documentation was legitimate." She failed to declare her assets. She declared what was required for a student visa, which she had. Her family's wealth is not her personal wealth, and she was under no legal obligation to declare assets held in foreign trusts and corporations. The shell corporations are legally registered entities, fully compliant with both Ghanaian and international law. Every transaction has been reported to the appropriate authorities. I have documentation here. Marcus slid a tablet across the table. Complete audit trails, tax filings, legal registrations, everything. I watched Prosecutor Park's face as she scrolled through the documents. Her expression tightened. The anonymous investment in Park Tech Solutions was made through a legitimate investment vehicle, properly registered, with all required disclosures made to Korean financial authorities, Marcus interrupted. The fact that Mr. Park Min-jun didn't recognize his own investor is not Ms. Osei's fault. Perhaps if he'd been more diligent in his fiduciary duties as CEO, he would have known who owned 60% of his company. Morrison leaned forward. "This looks like a revenge scheme. She hid her identity to trap him." "She fell in love and wanted to be loved for herself, not her money," Marcus said, and for the first time I heard emotion in his voice. "Is that a crime, detective? Last I checked, there's no law against being modest about your wealth." The interrogation went on for 3 more hours, but I could see it shifting. Marcus had come prepared with everything, every document, every filing, every piece of evidence that proved my investments were legal, my identity was legitimate, and I'd broken no laws. Finally, Prosecutor Park stood. "We'll need to verify these documents." "Take your time," Marcus said smoothly. "But I should inform you that I'll be filing a formal complaint against Mr. Park Min-jun for filing false charges, defamation, and abuse of process. I'll also be requesting an investigation into how he obtained sealed financial information about my client. That seems like a significant breach of privacy laws." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Are you threatening?" "I'm informing you of my intentions," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." They released me at midnight with a pending investigation status. I was free to go but couldn't leave Seoul. My assets remained frozen. Outside the station, a black Mercedes was waiting. Papa had sent his personal security team. Ms. Osei, the head of security, a Korean man named Kim Jun-seo, greeted me with a bow. "We have a secure location prepared for you." "I want to go home." "Your apartment is compromised," Marcus said, climbing into the car beside me. "There are reporters everywhere and it's not safe. Your father insisted." The secure location was a luxury penthouse in Gangnam, owned by one of my family's subsidiary companies. As we drove through Seoul's nighttime streets, I checked my phone. The news had exploded. Hidden heiress arrested in marriage fraud scheme. Billionaire's daughter accused of manipulating Korean CEO. Crippled wife secretly controlled husband's company. Every headline painted me as the villain. Min-jun had given interviews, playing the victim perfectly. "I loved her," he told one reporter, his eyes glistening with fake tears. "I married her despite her disability, despite her having nothing. And this whole time she was manipulating me, controlling my company, lying about who she was. I feel so betrayed." Jae-woo stood beside him in the photos, playing the supportive new girlfriend. The comment section was vicious. Gold digger got what she deserved. Africans always scheming. Poor guy married a snake. I threw my phone across the car. "Don't read that garbage," Marcus advised. "Public opinion is manipulable. We'll change the narrative." "How?" I asked bitterly. "He's won. He's frozen my assets, destroyed my reputation, and kept control of my company. Even if I prove my innocence, I've lost." Marcus smiled, and it was a predator's smile. "Ms. Osei, your father didn't just send me. He sent a team. Financial analysts, investigators, media specialists, and legal experts from 3 countries. We've been working for the past 6 hours while you were in holding." He pulled out his own tablet and showed me a document. "This is a forensic audit of Park Tech Solutions conducted by our team. What we found is interesting." I leaned forward reading, then my eyes widened. "He's been embezzling." "For 2 years," Marcus confirmed. "Small amounts at first, hidden in expense reports and vendor payments. But in the last 6 months, after he discovered who you were, he got greedy. He siphoned off approximately $2.3 million into offshore accounts." "Can we prove it?" "Every transaction is documented here. We also found something else." Marcus swiped to another file. "Lee Jae-woo isn't just his mistress. She's his accomplice. She's been creating fake vendor accounts, approving fraudulent invoices, and splitting the money with him. They were planning to take the money and disappear once the divorce was finalized." My mind spun. He accused me of fraud while committing fraud himself. "Classic projection," Marcus said. "He thought he could discredit you first, freeze your assets so you couldn't fight back, take control of the company, and then disappear with both your money and his stolen funds." "What do we do?" Marcus's smile grew sharper. "Tomorrow morning, I'm filing criminal charges against both of them. I'm also calling an emergency shareholders meeting. Your assets may be frozen, but your voting rights as majority shareholder are protected under Korean corporate law. They can't take that away without a conviction." "He'll fight it." "Let him try." Marcus leaned back. "Your father also made some calls. It turns out that prosecutor Park Hae-won, her daughter attends university in Ghana, sponsored by one of your family's educational foundations. And Detective Morrison, he's been investigating Korean corporate fraud for Interpol, and he doesn't appreciate being manipulated into making false arrests." I stared at him. "Papa works fast." "Your family built an empire by being strategic, Ms. Osei. Did you think they'd abandon you now?" That night in the penthouse, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline, and I thought about everything that had happened. Min-jun had looked at me and seen dead weight. He'd seen my disability and decided I was worthless. He'd never bothered to look deeper, to see the woman beneath. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Enjoying your prison cell? Oh wait, Daddy's money got you out. Some things never change. You can't buy love, Kady. You're still just a crippled African girl who thought she could play in our world." Min-jun, taunting me even now. I typed back, "Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. Tomorrow the world learns what you really are." His response was immediate. "I'm not afraid of you. You're finished in Korea. Everyone believes me. Everyone thinks you're the fraud. Even your money can't save you from public opinion." I smiled at the phone screen, that same cold smile from before. "We'll see." The next morning, I woke to chaos. My phone was flooded with messages. I checked the news and my breath caught. Breaking. CEO Park Min-jun accused of embezzlement and fraud. Police raid Park Tech Solutions headquarters. Lee Jae-woo, junior executive, arrested in corporate fraud scheme. Marcus had moved during the night. He'd filed everything, presented the evidence to Prosecutor Park, and most importantly, held a press conference at 6 a.m. I watched the video on my phone. Marcus stood before dozens of cameras, looking immaculate. My client, Ms. Kady Osei, is the victim of a calculated smear campaign by her soon-to-be ex-husband, Park Min-jun, he stated clearly. Yesterday's arrest was based on false information provided by Mr. Park, who was attempting to deflect from his own criminal activities. He detailed everything: the embezzlement, the fake vendors, Jae-woo's involvement, the offshore accounts. Ms. Osei legally invested in Park Tech Solutions, saving it from bankruptcy. In return, Mr. Park committed fraud, stole from the company she saved, and then attempted to destroy her reputation when she sought a divorce. This is not just corporate fraud. This is intimate partner financial abuse combined with discrimination based on disability and nationality. The reporters exploded with questions, but Marcus wasn't finished. I'm also announcing that Ms. Osei will be filing a civil lawsuit for defamation, emotional distress, and discrimination. Furthermore, as majority shareholder, she's calling for Mr. Park's immediate removal as CEO and a complete restructuring of Park Tech Solutions leadership. My phone rang. Papa. Did you see? He asked. Yes. Good, now comes the hard part. Can you face him? The shareholders' meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. I had 6 hours to prepare. Yes, I said firmly. I can face him. Then show him, Papa said, who he really divorced. At 1:45 p.m., I arrived at Park Tech Solutions headquarters in a convoy of black cars. Security flanked me as I wheeled through the lobby, past gaping employees and flashing cameras. The boardroom was on the 15th floor. When the elevator doors opened, Min-jun was standing there, waiting. His face was haggard, dark circles under his eyes, but his expression was still defiant. This isn't over, he hissed as I wheeled past him. I stopped, turned my wheelchair to face him directly. You're right, I said softly. It's not over, it's just beginning. Then I wheeled into the boardroom, where 12 board members sat waiting. And at the head of the table, in the chairman's seat, sat someone I never expected to see. My father. But he wasn't alone. Sitting beside him was someone who made my blood run cold, Min-jun's mother, and she was smiling. Papa, my voice came out smaller than I intended. What are you doing here? My father stood, imposing in his custom-tailored suit, every inch the billionaire empire builder he was. I'm here to protect my daughter's interests. As the primary trustee of the Osei Family Trust, which holds your shares in this company, I have every right to attend this meeting. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was staring at Mrs. Park Sung-hee, Min-jun's mother, who sat beside my father with a smile that could freeze fire. She was elegant, in her late 50s, wearing Chanel and diamonds. I'd met her exactly twice during my marriage. Both times she'd looked at me like I was something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. Mrs. Park, I said carefully, wheeling myself to the table. I'm surprised to see you here. Are you? Her voice was silk over steel. My son is the CEO of this company. Of course I'm here to support him during this unfortunate situation. Min-jun entered behind me, and I heard his sharp intake of breath when he saw his mother. Mother, what are you? Sit down, Min-jun, she commanded, not looking at him. The other board members shifted uncomfortably. I recognized most of them, venture capitalists, tech industry veterans, a few executives from partner companies. They'd all benefited from my anonymous investment, from the company's miraculous turnaround. Now they watched me like I was a grenade with the pin pulled. Marcus Chen entered last, carrying a briefcase full of documents. He took the seat beside me, arranged his materials, and looked up with that predator's smile. Shall we begin? The meeting started with formalities. roll call, acknowledgement of shareholders, verification of voting rights. My 60% stake was confirmed, despite the asset freeze. Min-jun held 25%, and the remaining 15% was split among smaller investors. I'm calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in CEO Park Min-jun, I stated, my voice clear and strong. Based on evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and gross mismanagement of company assets. Seconded, said one of the venture capitalists, a woman named Sarah Chen who'd always been professional with me. Min-jun shot to his feet. This is a witch hunt. Everything I've done has been for this company. Including stealing $2.3 million. Marcus interrupted smoothly, sliding documents across the table. These are forensic accounting reports showing systematic embezzlement over a 2-year period. Fake vendor accounts, inflated expense reports, unauthorized transfers to offshore accounts. The board members began reading, their expressions darkening. These could be fabricated, Min-jun protested, but his voice wavered. They're verified by 3 independent accounting firms, Marcus countered, and corroborated by Lee Jae-woo's confession. That caught everyone's attention. Confession, I asked sharply. Marcus pulled out his phone, placed it on the table, and pressed play. Jae-woo's voice filled the boardroom, thin and frightened. He told me it would be fine. That once he divorced Kady and took control of the company, we'd have everything. The money we stole, plus her shares. He said she was just a stupid cripple who wouldn't figure it out until it was too late. He made me create the fake vendors. He told me exactly what to do. I just wanted him to love me. The recording ended. Silence consumed the room. Min-jun's face had gone white. She's lying. She's trying to save herself. Is she? My father spoke for the first time, his Ghanaian accent thick with contempt. Or is she telling the truth about a man who married my daughter under false pretenses, abused her during her disability, and then tried to steal everything she built? I didn't marry her for money. I didn't even know she had any. Exactly, Mrs. Park Sung-hee said softly. Everyone turned to her. She stood gracefully, walked around the table, and stopped in front of her son. Then she slapped him across the face, so hard the sound echoed like a gunshot. Mother, Min-jun gasped, holding his reddening cheek. Do you know what you've done? Her voice shook with rage. Do you have any idea what you've destroyed? I was trying to protect myself. She was going to ruin me. You ruined yourself, Mrs. Park's eyes blazed. I raised you better than this. I taught you honor, integrity, respect. And you became this, a thief, an abuser, a man who throws away his disabled wife like garbage. I stared at her in shock. This wasn't the cold woman who'd barely spoken to me at family dinners. She turned to me, and her expression softened into something that might have been regret. Ms. Osei, I owe you an apology. When my son first told me he'd married you, I was displeased. You were foreign, you were not from our social circle, and yes, I was prejudiced. But I watched you for 3 years. I saw how you cared for my son, how you supported him, how you never complained even when he came home late or treated you poorly after your accident. You knew, I whispered. You knew he was treating me badly. I suspected, but I convinced myself I was imagining things that my son couldn't be so cruel. She looked at Min-jun with disgust. I was wrong, and 2 weeks ago I hired my own investigators to look into this situation. I found out everything, who you really are, what you really did for this company, and what my son did in return. She pulled a folder from her designer handbag and threw it at Min-jun's feet. That's evidence of your affair with Lee Jae-woo, dating back 18 months. 6 months before Kady's accident. You were cheating on your wife while she was healthy, and you simply used her disability as an excuse to divorce her. The board members gasped. My hands gripped my wheelchair's armrests so hard my knuckles went white. 18 months, I breathed, before the accident. Mrs. Park nodded. I'm sorry, child. My son is not the man I thought he was. Min-jun looked around the room wildly, like a trapped animal. This is insane. You're all turning on me because of money, because she's rich. But I built this company. With her money, Sarah Chen snapped. Every success you've had in the past 3 years came from her investment. You were weeks from bankruptcy when that 15 million came through. We all know it. We just didn't know the investor was your own wife. I'm calling for an immediate vote, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. All in favor of removing Park Min-jun as CEO. Every hand went up except Min-jun's. Motion passes, Marcus declared. Mr. Park, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You can't do this, Min-jun shouted. I'll sue, I'll fight this. With what money? My father asked mildly. Your personal assets are now frozen pending criminal investigation. Your shares in this company are subject to forfeiture if you're convicted of fraud, and your mother just disinherited you. Min-jun spun to face his mother. What? Mrs. Park's expression was stone. I've already called my lawyers. You're removed from the family trust, from my will, from all Park family businesses. You are no longer my heir. You're barely my son. For the first time, I saw Min-jun truly break. His legs seemed to give out, and he collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. I loved you, I said quietly, and everyone fell silent. I actually loved you, not because of what you could give me, but because I thought you saw me, the real me. I gave up my family's approval, my father's blessing, everything, because I wanted to believe someone could love me without knowing my worth, and you couldn't even do that when you thought I was poor. I wheeled closer to him. But the worst part? You loved me when I had nothing to offer. You proposed to me when you thought I was just a student with no money, no connections, no power. That version of you, the one who fell in love with ideas and art and conversation, he was real. And then you killed him. You became this. Min-jun looked up, tears streaming down his face. Kady, please. Security, Marcus called. 2 guards entered and lifted Min-jun from his chair. He didn't resist as they walked him toward the door, but he turned back one last time. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. So am I replied. I'm sorry I wasted 3 years on a man who was too small to see what was right in front of him. They took him away. The boardroom remained silent for a long moment. Ms. Osei, Sarah Chen said gently, what happens now with the company? I looked at my father. He nodded. I'm appointing an interim CEO while we conduct a proper search, I announced. We'll restructure the leadership, implement proper oversight, and ensure this never happens again. This company will continue to thrive, but it will do so with integrity. And your shares? Another board member asked. Remain as they are. I invested in this company because I believed in its potential. That hasn't changed. Only the leadership has. The meeting adjourned. As board members filed out, Mrs. Park approached me. Ms. Osei, might we speak privately? I nodded. Marcus and my father stepped outside, leaving us alone. Mrs. Park sat beside me, and up close, I could see the tears she was fighting to contain. I failed you, she said softly. As a mother-in-law, as a woman, as a human being. I judged you for your nationality, your disability, your perceived poverty. I never gave you a chance. Why are you helping me now? I asked. Because I saw the evidence of what my son did, and I was ashamed. Because I realized that you were the best thing that ever happened to him, and he destroyed it through his own greed and cruelty. Because you deserved better. She reached out and took my hand. And because no one deserves to be called dead weight for being in a wheelchair. My younger sister was in a wheelchair for 15 years before she passed. I know the strength it takes. I know the courage. And I know that disability doesn't diminish worth. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I squeezed her hand. Thank you. She stood, composed herself, and headed for the door. But she paused at the threshold. There's something else you should know, she said without turning around. Min-jun wasn't working alone in his scheme to destroy you. There's someone else involved. Someone with more power, more connections, and more to lose if you succeed. My blood chilled. Who? She turned, her expression grave. That Interpol detective, Morrison. He's not investigating you for justice. He's being paid. And the person paying him is someone you know. Someone who wants you destroyed more than Min-jun ever did. Who? I demanded. Mrs. Park hesitated. Then, I don't know their identity, but I know they're coming, and they have resources even your family might not be able to fight. She left, leaving me alone in the boardroom with a new threat looming. I called Marcus and my father back in. "We have a problem," I said, and explained what Mrs. Park had told me. Marcus's expression darkened. "Morrison, I knew something felt wrong about him. He was too prepared, too coordinated. Someone fed him information." "Can we find out who?" I asked. "I'll start digging," Marcus promised. "But Ms. Osei, if someone with serious resources is targeting you, we need to be careful. This goes beyond a vengeful ex-husband." My father's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. "What?" I asked. "Papa, what is it?" He lowered the phone slowly. "That was our head of security in Accra. Someone just attempted to break into our company headquarters. They were looking for files on you. Financial records, personal information, everything." "Did they get anything?" "No, security stopped them, but Kady..." He looked at me with fear I'd never seen before. "They killed 2 of our guards in the process. This isn't just corporate espionage. Someone wants to destroy you, and they're willing to kill to do it." The room spun. 2 people were dead, because of me, because of whatever I'd stumbled into. "Who would do this?" I whispered. Marcus was already typing on his laptop. "I'm checking Morrison's background, his finances, his connections." His laptop beeped. Marcus stared at the screen, his face draining of color. "No," he breathed. "That's impossible." "What? Marcus, what did you find?" He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a wire transfer record. Money flowing from an offshore account to Detective Morrison's personal bank account. The amount, $500,000. But it was the name on the sending account that made my world collapse. Osei Global Holdings. My family's company. Someone in my own family was trying to destroy me. "No," I said, shaking my head. "That's not possible. My family would never." My father grabbed the laptop, examined the transfer, and his hands began to shake. "The account access code," he said hoarsely. "This is a restricted executive account. Only 5 people in the world have access to this level of our holdings." "Who?" I demanded. He looked at me, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "You, me, your mother, your brother Marcus." He paused. "And your Uncle Quame." Uncle Quame, my father's younger brother. The man who'd been passed over for leadership of the family empire when my grandfather chose Papa instead. The man who'd smiled at every family gathering while resentment burned in his eyes. "He wouldn't," I said, but even as I spoke, pieces began clicking into place. The accident, the delivery truck that hit me, it ran a red light in broad daylight in one of Seoul's most monitored intersections. The driver was never found. The truck was reported stolen. "Papa," I whispered. "My accident, what if it wasn't an accident?" My father's eyes widened with horror. "Quame was in Seoul on business 3 days before your accident. I remember because he asked me about you, where you lived, what you were doing. I thought he was just being family." Marcus was typing furiously. "If Quame orchestrated the accident and is paying Morrison, he's been planning this for years. But why? What does he gain from destroying you?" "The succession," my father said grimly. "Kady was supposed to take over as CEO of Osei Global when I retire next year. It was officially announced at our last board meeting. Quame would never inherit unless I was dead or completely discredited," I finished. "If I'm convicted of fraud, imprisoned, or destroyed financially, I can't inherit. The position would go to the next in line." "Your brother Marcus is only 23 and still in university," Papa said. "He wouldn't be ready. The board would choose someone with experience, someone who's been with the company for decades." "Quame," I breathed. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying your victory? It won't last. You should have stayed in that wheelchair where you belonged. Better yet, you should have died in that accident. But don't worry, I always finish what I start. A friend." I showed the message to Marcus and my father. He's threatening you, Marcus said. We need to get you somewhere safe, now. No, I said firmly. I'm done running. I'm done being a victim. If Uncle Quame wants a war, he'll get one. But this time I'm fighting back with everything I have. My father looked at me, really looked at me, and slowly smiled. It was a warrior's smile, the expression of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. That's my daughter, he said. So what's the plan? I thought for a moment, my mind racing through possibilities, strategies, and risks. We need proof that Quame orchestrated everything. The accident, the payments to Morrison, the attempted break-in, everything. And we need to do it before he makes another move. How? Marcus asked. I smiled, and it was cold and calculated, the smile of someone who'd learned from the best. We give him exactly what he wants. We make him think he's won. But as I explained my plan, none of us noticed the security camera in the corner of the boardroom, the one that had been installed just that morning, or the fact that on the other end, someone was watching and smiling. The security feed streamed directly to a luxury hotel suite in downtown Seoul, where a man sat watching 3 screens simultaneously. Kady Osei was 52 years old, silver-haired, distinguished, and utterly ruthless. He'd spent 30 years watching his older brother receive everything, their father's love, the company leadership, the respect of the business world, all because he'd been born second. He sipped his whiskey and listened to Kady explain her plan through the hidden camera feed. Clever girl, he murmured, just like your father but not clever enough. He picked up his phone and dialed. It's me, he said when someone answered. They know about Morrison, and they suspect me. Move to Phase 3 immediately. Are you sure? A woman's voice asked. Phase 3 is irreversible. I'm sure. End this tonight. He hung up and stared at the screen showing his niece, the woman who'd stolen his birthright simply by being born. The woman who should have died in that intersection 18 months ago. The delivery truck driver had been paid $100,000 to run the red light. Quame had watched from a cafe across the street as the truck slammed into Kady. He'd waited for the confirmation that she was dead. But she'd survived, paralyzed, broken, but alive. At first, he'd been frustrated, but then he'd realized a living failure was better than a dead martyr. A crippled Kady could be discredited, destroyed, erased from the succession. So he'd waited, watched, and planned. When his investigators discovered that Kady had married some nobody Korean businessman, he'd laughed. Perfect. Let her play house while he positioned himself. But then she'd started investing in Min-jun's company, being smart, being strategic. So Quame had made contact with Min-jun 6 months ago. One conversation, one offer. I can tell you who your mysterious investor is, Quame had said, and I can help you take everything she has. In return, you help me destroy her reputation completely. Min-jun had been eager, greedy, stupid. Now Kady thought she'd won by destroying Min-jun. She had no idea that Min-jun was just the opening move in a game that would end with her death. Quame's phone buzzed, a text message with a photo attachment. He opened it and smiled. The photo showed a Korean woman in her 30s, professional, beautiful, standing outside the Osei Global offices in Accra. The text read, in position, awaiting orders. Quame typed back, execute, make it look like suicide. Back in the boardroom, I finished explaining my plan to my father and Marcus. We leak false information that I'm transferring all my assets out of Korea, I said. Make Quame think I'm running scared. He'll make a move to stop the transfers, and when he does, we'll have proof of his involvement. It's risky, Marcus warned, if he suspects it's a trap. He won't, I interrupted, because I'm going to do something he'd never expect. I'm going to visit him. My father stood abruptly. Absolutely not. Kady, if he tried to kill you once. Then he'll try again, and we'll catch him in the act, I said firmly. Papa, we need evidence. Suspicions and wire transfers aren't enough. We need him to confess, to make a mistake, to reveal himself. And the only way to do that is to confront him directly. With proper security, Marcus added. Surveillance, recording equipment, backup plans. We don't let her go in unprotected. My father looked between us, his jaw tight. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but I'm coming with you. No, I said gently. He won't talk if you're there. It has to be me, just me. 3 hours later, I was in a car heading to Quame's hotel. I wore a wire. I had a panic button in my wheelchair controls, and I had 6 security personnel in the hotel lobby and hallways, all former military, all loyal to my family. Marcus's voice came through my earpiece. We have eyes on you. All exits are covered. Say the word and we extract you in 30 seconds. Understood, I whispered. I reached Quame's suite and knocked. He answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting. Kady, his smile was warm, avuncular. What a wonderful surprise. Come in, come in. The suite was opulent, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, expensive art on the walls, the smell of premium whiskey in the air. Quame looked relaxed in slacks and a cashmere sweater. Uncle Quame, I said, wheeling myself inside. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Never, my dear. I heard about your troubles with that husband of yours. Terrible business. He poured himself a drink. Can I get you anything? No, thank you. I positioned myself near the window, remembering Marcus's instructions about camera angles. I wanted to talk to you about something sensitive. Of course, family should stick together during difficult times. I took a breath. I know it was you. Quame's hand paused halfway to his mouth. I'm sorry. The accident, the payments to Morrison, the attempted break-in in Accra, the scheme with Min-jun, all of it, I know it was you. For a long moment, Quame just stared at me. Then he started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but deep, genuine laughter. Oh, Kady, he said, wiping his eyes. You're so much like your father, always seeing conspiracies, always suspicious. Am I wrong? He set down his glass and walked toward me slowly. What if you're not? What would you do about it? I'd ask you why. Why? His smile faded. You really don't know, do you? You've lived your entire life as the golden child, the chosen heir, the brilliant daughter. You have no idea what it's like to be second. To watch your older brother get everything while you get scraps. Papa didn't. Your father inherited the company because he was born first. Quame's voice rose. Not because he was smarter, not because he was better, because he came out of the womb 3 years before me, and I've spent 30 years being his shadow, his trusted advisor, his second in command. Never the leader, never the one in charge. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. And then you came along, his precious daughter, and he announced that you, a woman barely 30 years old, would inherit everything. Would become CEO while I, with 30 years of experience, would continue to be nothing. So you tried to kill me, I said flatly. I tried to remove an obstacle, Quame corrected. And when you survived, I adapted. A paralyzed heir is useless. A discredited heir is worthless. I just needed to destroy your reputation completely, and the board would have no choice but to choose me. It won't work, I said. I have evidence, recordings, witnesses. Quame smiled. Do you? Or do you have the word of a corrupt detective who'll say anything to save himself? Wire transfers that could be faked? A bitter ex-husband's testimony? Kady, I've been planning this for years. I've covered every trace, every angle. You can't prove anything. Then why are you confessing? His smile widened. Because you're going to die tonight, and dead women can't testify. My blood ran cold. Security is right outside. Hotel security works for me. Your bodyguards in the lobby received a credible threat about a bomb in the building. They're being evacuated as we speak. And your little friend's listening in? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a signal jammer. Can't hear a thing. I pressed my panic button. Nothing happened. It's just us, Quame said softly. Like it should have been in that intersection. You should have died then, Kady. Would have saved us both a lot of trouble. He walked to a side table and opened a case I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a syringe filled with clear liquid. Ketamine overdose, he explained casually. Very sad. Young disabled woman depressed over her divorce, struggling with pain management, takes too much medication. The suicide note is already written in your handwriting. Thank you for all those letters you sent me over the years, made it easy to copy your style. You won't get away with this, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I already have. He filled the syringe. Your father will be devastated, of course, but grief-stricken, he'll lean on family, on me, and within a year I'll be running Osei Global like I always should have been. He approached me with the syringe. I did the only thing I could think of. I screamed. And I rolled my wheelchair backward as hard as I could, straight toward the window. Kady, no, Quame lunged for me. But I'd calculated the angle. My wheelchair hit the floor-to-ceiling window at exactly the right spot, the corner where the glass was weakest. The safety glass spiderwebbed but didn't break. Quame grabbed the back of my wheelchair. Are you insane? We're on the 20th floor. I know, I said, and I pressed a button on my armrest. The wheelchair's battery pack, which I'd had Marcus's team modify, sent an electrical surge through the frame. Quame, holding the metal handles, convulsed and fell backward, the syringe flying from his hand. The suite door exploded inward. Freeze, hands up. Korean police flooded in, followed by my security team, but it wasn't Marcus or my father leading them. It was Prosecutor Park Hae-won. She walked straight to Quame, who was gasping on the floor, and cuffed him herself. Quame Osei, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, bribery of law enforcement officials, and corporate espionage. You can't prove, Quame started. We have everything, Prosecutor Park interrupted. She held up a tablet showing video footage. The conversation, the confession, the attempted injection, plus Detective Morrison's full cooperation. He turned state's evidence 2 hours ago. Gave us bank records, communications, everything. Quame's face twisted with rage. This is a setup. She orchestrated this. She did, Prosecutor Park agreed. Very cleverly, too. The signal jammer you activated, it was a fake. Everything was still broadcasting. The bomb threat, never real. We used it to clear civilians while we moved into position. Your hotel security that works for you, actually undercover police. She leaned down. You underestimated her, Mr. Osei, just like you underestimated what a woman in a wheelchair could do. That was your mistake. As they hauled Quame to his feet, he looked at me with pure hatred. You think you've won, he spat. This isn't over. I'm not the only one who wants you gone. There are others. Tell it to your lawyer. Prosecutor Park cut him off. They dragged him away. I sat in my wheelchair, shaking, adrenaline making my hands tremble. Marcus rushed in, followed by my father. Papa dropped to his knees beside my wheelchair, pulling me into a fierce hug. Never again, he whispered. Never risk yourself like that again. It worked, Papa, I said into his shoulder. It's over. But even as I said it, I remembered Quame's words. I'm not the only one. Marcus was thinking the same thing. We need to find out who else is involved, if Quame had partners. One thing at a time, Prosecutor Park interrupted. Ms. Osei needs medical attention. That was a traumatic experience. She was right. Now that the adrenaline was fatting, I was crashing. My whole body shook. They took me to a private hospital, Papa and Marcus never leaving my side. The doctors checked me over, gave me something for the shock, and recommended I stay overnight for observation. In the private room, with guards outside and my family close, I finally felt safe enough to close my eyes. But sleep didn't come, because my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Impressive performance, but Quame was just the opening act. The real show starts tomorrow. Sleep well, Kady. It's the last peaceful night you'll have. Architect. I showed the message to Marcus and my father. The architect, Papa said. Who is that? Someone who's been orchestrating all of this, I realized. Quame said he wasn't the only one. What if he was working for someone? What if someone bigger is behind everything? Marcus was already tracing the message. Encrypted, routed through multiple servers, origin impossible to trace. Whoever sent this knows what they're doing. My father's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went gray. "What?" I demanded. "Papa, what happened?" He lowered the phone slowly. "That was our head of security in Accra, your mother. Someone tried to kill her tonight. A car bomb in the parking garage at headquarters. She survived, but 2 of her assistants didn't." The room spun. "Mama, is she?" "She's safe. But Kady, the bomb was placed in her car, not yours. This wasn't meant for you. It was meant to hurt you by hurting her." "The architect," I whispered. "They're escalating." Another message came through. "Your mother was just a warning. Tomorrow I take something you can't replace. I take everything. And this time there's no clever plan that will save you. Architect." Marcus looked up from his laptop, his face pale. "I've been cross-referencing the timing of events, the resources needed, the level of planning. Whoever this is has access to serious money, serious connections, and detailed knowledge of your family's movements." "Someone inside the company," Papa suggested. "Or someone who was inside," Marcus said slowly. "Someone who would know everything about Osei Global, who has the resources to orchestrate this, and who has a reason to want the entire Osei family destroyed." "Who?" I asked. Marcus pulled up a file on his laptop. "Do you remember James Mensah?" The name hit me like a physical blow. My ex-fiancé. "Before you moved to Seoul, before you met Min-jun, you were engaged to James Mensah," Marcus confirmed. "Son of Victor Mensah, your father's former business partner." I remembered. James and I had been engaged for 6 months, 5 years ago. It was an arrangement that made sense. Our families were close, our business interests aligned. But I'd broken it off when I realized he loved the Osei name more than he loved me. "He was furious when you called off the engagement," Papa said quietly. "Claimed you humiliated him. His father blamed me for raising a daughter who didn't respect tradition." "Victor Mensah," Marcus continued, pulling up more files. "He and your father had a falling out right after the broken engagement. Victor wanted to merge Mensah Industries with Osei Global, with James and you as the unifying marriage. When you refused, Victor saw it as a betrayal. He pulled his investments, tried to compete with us, and lost millions." "Mensah Industries went bankrupt 2 years ago," I said, remembering. "Victor and James disappeared." "They didn't disappear," Marcus corrected grimly. "They've been preparing, and look at this." He showed me a financial trail. 3 months before your accident, a shell company called Architect Holdings purchased Mensah Industries' remaining assets for pennies. The CEO of Architect Holdings is listed as James Mensah, I finished. My phone buzzed again. "Took you long enough, Kady. Yes, it's me. Remember when you threw my ring back in my face, told me I wasn't good enough for an os? Tomorrow I show you what happens to people who think they're better than me. See you soon, James." And then a photo came through. It was my brother Marcus, the real Marcus Osei, my 23-year-old brother, not my lawyer Marcus Chen, tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, blood on his face, terror in his eyes. Below the photo, "Come alone to the address I send next or your baby brother dies. You have 2 hours. And Kady, try to bring anyone and I'll send him back to you in pieces." My father grabbed the phone from my shaking hands and roared in anguish. But I was already moving, already planning, because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. James Mensah had made his final mistake. He'd taken family, and the Osei family protected their own. "No," my father said firmly, blocking my wheelchair with his body. "Absolutely not. We call the police, we—" "And my brother dies," I interrupted coldly. "Papa, you know James, he's not bluffing. He spent years planning this, spent millions, orchestrated my accident, manipulated Quame, destroyed Min-jun. He wants me to come alone, and I will." "Kady." "But I won't go unprepared." I turned to Marcus Chen. "I need everything you can give me. Trackers, recording devices, weapons if possible. And I need a way to keep them monitoring me without James knowing." Marcus looked at my father, who after a long moment nodded reluctantly. "I'll have our team prepare everything," Marcus said. "But Ms. Osei will need to stay close. Even if we can't be visible, we need to be within extraction distance. My phone buzzed. The address, an abandoned shipyard on the outskirts of Seoul, 30 minutes away. 1 hour and 53 minutes, I said, checking the time. Let's move. The next hour was a blur of preparation. Marcus Chen's team outfitted my wheelchair with GPS trackers so small they were invisible. They gave me a contact lens with a built-in camera, feeding video to a remote location. They provided a small ceramic blade hidden in my wheelchair's armrest. Metal detectors wouldn't catch it. Prosecutor Park, Haewon arrived as they were finishing. I heard what happened, she said. We can mobilize tactical teams. He'll kill my brother the moment he sees them, I replied. I have to do this his way, but I need you to promise me something. What? If I don't make it out of there, you make sure he pays. All of them, James, anyone who helped him, everyone who thought they could destroy my family. Promise me justice. Prosecutor Park's eyes hardened. You have my word. My father pulled me aside before I left. Kady, you're the strongest person I know. Stronger than me, stronger than any of us. But you're still my daughter and I'm terrified. I know, Papa. I held his hands. But Marcus needs me, and I'm done being a victim. Tonight I end this. Then let me tell you something your grandfather told me when I took over the company, Papa said. The Osei family didn't build an empire by being merciful to our enemies. We built it by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anyone who challenged us. You have that blood in you. Use it. I kissed his cheek. I will. The drive to the shipyard was silent. My security team followed at a distance in unmarked vehicles. Through my contact lens, I could hear Marcus Chen coordinating the operation. Thermal imaging shows 3 heat signatures in the main warehouse, he reported. One matches your brother's size. The other 2 are likely James and an associate. Only 3, I frowned. That seems too easy. Could be a trap, Marcus agreed. Or he's overconfident. Either way, we'll be ready. The shipyard loomed ahead, rusted cranes, abandoned containers, warehouses with broken windows. The perfect place for someone to disappear. My driver stopped at the entrance. This is as far as I go, he said. The warehouse is 300 meters ahead. Are you sure about this? No, I admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. I wheeled myself through the shipyard, the only sound my wheelchair's motor humming in the darkness. Security lights illuminated patches of the grounds, but shadows dominated. Every corner could hide a threat. The warehouse doors were open, light spilling out. I entered slowly. The space was vast, empty except for a single area in the center lit by portable floodlights. My brother Marcus was tied to a chair, just like the photo. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but he was alive. He looked up when he saw me, and I saw relief mixed with terror. Kady, no, it's a trap you need to. Quiet, a voice interrupted. James Mensah stepped into the light. 5 years had changed him. He was harder now, leaner, with cold eyes that held none of the warmth I remembered from our engagement. He wore an expensive suit, and he smiled like he'd already won. Hello, Kady, you look well. Wheelchair suits you, actually. Very humble, very vulnerable. Nothing like the arrogant princess who threw me away. Let my brother go, James. This is between us. Is it? He circled my wheelchair slowly. Because from where I stand, this is about your entire family. Your father who let his daughter humiliate me. Your mother who told my mother I wasn't suitable. Your grandfather, who built an empire on the backs of people like my father and then discarded us when we were no longer useful. Your father tried to force a merger through our marriage, I said evenly. When I refused, he made bad business decisions out of spite. The Osei family didn't destroy Mensah Industries. Your father did. James's hand shot out and slapped me across the face. The contact lens went flying, clattering across the concrete floor. Clever, he said, crushing it under his heel. Did you think I wouldn't check for surveillance? I've been planning this for 3 years, Kady. Every detail, every contingency. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Marcus Chen's voice in my earpiece. We lost video. Moving in. Don't, I said quietly. James laughed. Talking to your rescue team. Yes, I know they're out there, but look up. I did. Throughout the warehouse rafters, I saw red laser sights, at least a dozen of them, all pointed at my brother. Snipers, James explained. Ex-military, very well paid. The moment your people breach this building, Marcus dies. Then you die. Then I disappear with the $500 million I've already extracted from your family's accounts. Impossible, I said. Our accounts are. Protected by security measures I spent 2 years learning to bypass. James pulled out a tablet, showing me real-time transfers draining Osei global accounts. Your Uncle Quame gave me access codes before you arrested him. Funny how people cooperate when you threaten their families. I felt sick watching our wealth drain away. Hundreds of millions flowing to offshore accounts. Why? I asked. Why go to all this trouble? You could have moved on, built your own empire. Because you took everything from me, James roared, his composure cracking. I loved you, Kady, actually loved you. Not for your money, not for your name, for you. And you looked at me like I was dirt, like I was using you. You were, I said quietly. You admitted it to your friends at your bachelor party. I heard you. Once I marry her, the Mensa name will be equal to Osei. That's what you said. James froze. You were there. I crashed it, wore a disguise, wanted to surprise you. I smiled bitterly. Surprise. You never told me. Because I wanted to believe I was wrong. But then your father started talking about the merger, about how I'd bring honor to the Mensa name, and I realized you both saw me the same way, as a commodity. So yes. I ended it, and I'd do it again. James stared at me for a long moment. Then he started laughing, a broken, bitter sound. You self-righteous hypocrite, he said. You married Min-jun for the same reason, to feel superior, to play dress-up as a poor girl, to prove you could be loved without your money. How did that work out? The words stung, because they were partially true. You're right, I admitted. I made a mistake with Min-jun. I was naive, but I learned from it. That's the difference between us, James. I grow from my failures. You're defined by them. His face twisted with rage. He pulled out a gun. Enough talking. Here's what happens now. You're going to transfer the rest of your personal assets to my accounts. Then you're going to sign a document confessing to fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage, the same crimes you accused your husband of. Then you're going to put this gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. And if I refuse? Then I shoot your brother, piece by piece, while you watch. He turned the gun toward Marcus, starting with his kneecaps. Wait, I held up my hands. I'll do it, just don't hurt him. Smart girl, James tossed me the tablet. Start transferring. I looked at the screen at the account access page. My personal wealth, separate from the family business, was nearly $3 billion. Everything I'd built, everything I'd earned. Kady, don't, my brother gasped. Don't give him anything. It's okay, Marcus, I said softly. Money can be replaced, you can't. I began entering the transfer codes. But what James didn't know, what no one knew except my father and me, was that every Osei family member had a specific sequence of codes. The normal sequence transferred money, but there was another sequence, one we'd established years ago after a kidnapping attempt on my cousin. The panic sequence. I entered the codes carefully, my account number, the destination account, the amount, and then in the verification field, I entered the panic code. Somewhere in Accra, in Osei Global's security center, alarms were blaring. Emergency protocols were activating. Every asset I just transferred was actually being frozen in secure accounts that James couldn't access. And a silent alert was going to every law enforcement agency my family had relationships with. Done, I said, showing him the confirmation screen. James checked his phone, seeing the pending transfers. He smiled. See, that wasn't so hard, now the confession. He handed me a document and a pen. I read it, a detailed confession to crimes I didn't commit, all witnessed and notarized. If I signed this and died, my reputation would be destroyed. My family would be disgraced. Sign it, James commanded. I looked at my brother, bloodied but alive. I looked at James, so certain he'd won. And I thought about everything I'd survived, the accident, the paralysis, Min-jun's betrayal, Kwam's schemes. And I realized I was done being afraid. "No," I said simply. James pointed the gun at my brother's head. "Sign it or he dies." "You're going to kill us anyway," I replied calmly. "Whether I sign or not, you can't leave witnesses. So no, James, I won't give you the satisfaction of destroying my name on top of everything else." "You think I'm bluffing?" His hand shook. "I'll do it." "I know you will. You're a murderer. You've killed before, my mother's assistants, Kwam's associates, probably others. You'll kill us too. But you won't break me. Not my spirit. Not my family's honor. That you can never have." For a moment, we stared at each other. Then James pulled the trigger. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. But my brother didn't fall. Instead, James screamed, dropping the gun as blood poured from his hand. The shot had hit him, not Marcus. "Sniper team, targets acquired," a voice crackled through hidden speakers. "All hostile shooters neutralized." The warehouse erupted in chaos. Doors burst open as Korean tactical police stormed in. James's snipers, all of them, were already down, taken out simultaneously by counter-sniper teams. Prosecutor Park Hae-won walked in, followed by my father and Marcus Chen. "Your panic code activated our emergency response," Papa explained, rushing to untie Marcus. "We had our own snipers in position for the last 20 minutes, waiting for the right moment." "But the contact lens," I started. "Was a decoy," Marcus Chen said. "The real surveillance was in your wheelchair's frame. We saw and heard everything." James, clutching his bleeding hand, looked around wildly. "No, this isn't, you can't." "James Mensah," Prosecutor Park said, "you're under arrest for kidnapping, attempted murder, extortion, conspiracy, and about 40 other charges we'll add later." "You can't prove." "We have your confession," I said, wheeling toward him. "Everything you said recorded. The snipers you hired are all in custody. The money you tried to steal is frozen. And your associate," I gestured to a woman being dragged in by police, "is already talking." The woman was Claudia Mensah, James's older sister. I recognized her from photos. "He forced me to help," she was saying. "I didn't want any part of this." "Shut up," James screamed. "Don't say anything." But Claudia was desperate. "He killed those people in Accra. He orchestrated Kwam's plan. He paid off Detective Morrison. I have records, I have everything. I'll testify, just please. I don't want to go to prison." James lunged at her, but police tackled him to the ground. As they handcuffed him, he looked up at me with pure hatred. "You think you've won," he spat. "You're still a cripple, still broken, still." "Still richer than you'll ever be," I interrupted calmly. "Still smarter, still stronger, and still the rightful heir to an empire you'll never touch. I'm not broken, James. I'm battle-tested. There's a difference." They dragged him away, still screaming threats and curses. My brother Marcus, bloody but grinning, stumbled over to my wheelchair and hugged me fiercely. "You're insane," he laughed through tears. "Completely insane. I thought we were going to die." "So did I admitted. "But the Osei family doesn't quit. Papa taught us that." Our father joined the hug, all three of us holding each other in that empty warehouse. 3 months later, the courtroom was packed for the sentencing. James Mensah sat in handcuffs, his expensive suit replaced with prison orange. Beside him, Kady Osei looked 20 years older, broken. The judge read the verdicts. "James Mensah, you've been found guilty of kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and numerous other charges. I hereby sentence you to 40 years in prison without possibility of parole." James showed no emotion. "Kady Osei, you've been found guilty of attempted murder, bribery, and conspiracy. I sentence you to 25 years in prison." Kady closed his eyes. "Lee Jae-woo and Park Min-jun, for embezzlement and fraud, 15 years each." Min-jun looked at me from across the courtroom. For a moment, I saw regret in his eyes, but it was too late for regret. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ms. Osei, how do you feel about the verdicts? Justice has been served, I said simply. Not just for me, but for everyone these people hurt. What's next for you? Will you take over Osei Global? I smiled. Actually, I'm starting my own division, Osei Tech Innovation, focused on accessibility technology and inclusive design. My disability taught me that the world isn't built for everyone. I'm going to change that. And your ex-husband, any final words about Min-jun Park? I paused, considering. I hope prison gives him time to learn what I already know, that a person's worth isn't measured by what they can do with their legs, but what they do with their heart and mind. He forgot that. It cost him everything. I stood at the podium. Yes, stood, addressing the Osei Global Annual Shareholders Meeting. Months of physical therapy, experimental treatments, and sheer determination had given me back partial mobility. I could stand for short periods with assistance, could walk a few steps with braces. But I still used my wheelchair most of the time, by choice. Some people asked why I still use my wheelchair when I can walk. I told the assembled shareholders, board members, and family. The answer is simple. My wheelchair isn't a limitation. It's a tool. It's part of who I am now, and I refuse to be ashamed of it. Applause filled the room. Today, I'm announcing that Osei Tech Innovation has developed new accessibility software that's being implemented across 50 countries. We've partnered with universities, hospitals, and governments to ensure that technology serves everyone, regardless of physical ability. More applause. I also want to announce that Mrs. Park Sung-hee has joined our board of directors. She's bringing decades of business experience and a commitment to corporate integrity. Mrs. Park stood, bowing to the room. We'd grown close over the months. She'd become the mother-in-law I should have had, mentor and friend. After the meeting, my father approached me. I'm proud of you, he said, not because you survived, but because you thrived. I learned from the best, I replied. Your grandfather would have loved to see this, his granddaughter turning tragedy into triumph. I looked around the room, at my family, my team, my allies, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Congratulations on your success. You deserved better than what life gave you, but you made it beautiful anyway. MJ. Min-jun, from prison. I didn't respond. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Instead, I wheeled myself to the window and looked out at Seoul's skyline, the city where I'd lost everything and found myself. They called me dead weight. They underestimated me. They thought my wheelchair made me weak. But they forgot the most important thing. I am Kady Osei, daughter of empire builders, survivor of attempted murder, victim of betrayal who became a victor through perseverance. And I was never dead weight. I was the anchor that kept my family grounded. I was the foundation on which we built our future. And anyone who ever called me a cripple, anyone who thought my disability defined my worth, anyone who believed they could destroy me. They learned the hardest lesson of all. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never confuse silence for defeat. And never, ever underestimate a woman who survived hell and came back stronger. Because karma doesn't just come for betrayers. Sometimes, karma wears a wheelchair and a smile. And she always gets the last word. 5 years later, Kady Osei became CEO of Osei Global at 35, the youngest person to ever hold the position. Her accessibility technology division revolutionized how the world approached disability, creating opportunities for millions. Min-jun was released early for good behavior after 10 years. He returned to a quiet life, never remarrying, and sent Kady an annual letter of apology that she never responded to. James Mensah died in prison after 7 years from complications of an illness. His sister Claudia, who testified against him, served reduced time and now runs a charity for domestic abuse victims. Kady Osei died of a heart attack in prison after 12 years. His family never reconciled with the main Osei line. Mrs. Park Sung-hee became Kady's closest advisor and friend, eventually retiring to focus on disability advocacy work alongside Kady. And Kady, she eventually regained full mobility after years of treatment, but she kept her wheelchair in her office as a reminder, not of what she'd lost, but of what she'd gained. Strength, resilience, and an understanding that true worth comes not from what your body can do, but from the indomitable spirit within. She never married again. She didn't need to. She was complete all on her own.